Bob, you wanted to let our listeners know about something fun coming up that they can participate in.
Right in August, Sister and I are doing a virtual conference where we'll have, with John Paul II Healing Center, it's a 5-day Healing the Whole Person conference that'll be live. Sister and I will be live question and answer. Our spiritual director, Father Justin Brady, will be doing a live prayer of renouncing prayer and, just healing prayers and stuff.
Wow.
And the last couple of times we've done it, people have said that even people have gone through the other conferences have said just the pace of it and the way that it's laid out, and they got more healing in that week than they had gotten in the other experiences. And it just kind of blew us away. It's like people think that the virtual conference is kind of like, oh, that's a less than. And yet we've been seeing just tremendous graces and fruit. So we just invite anybody that's a listener or your friends or family to sign up.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Well, where could people sign up for this?
At the John Paul II Healing Center. It's August 5th through 8th.
So I just want to make sure the listeners get all the info. So you can type in John Paul II Healing Center into your Google search browser, or John Paul to, what's the website?
jpiihealingcenter.org.
There you have it. So you can go to jpiihealingcenter.org, and then you can register there for the virtual conference. Welcome to Restore the Glory podcast. My name is Jake Kim.
And I'm Bob Schutz.
We're two Catholic therapists sharing what we've learned personally and professionally to help you on the journey of restoration. If you've been blessed by our podcast, please prayerfully consider partnering with us on Patreon. Your support will help cover the cost to produce the podcast, but will also give you access to exclusive content like monthly reflections and special live stream teachings. Go to patreon.com/restoretheglory and join the mission of experiencing the restoration of our God-given glory. Hey, Bob, good to see you. There you are again, looking as handsome as ever.
Reflecting back to you, Jake. Reflecting back.
Oh, Bob, you're the best to play with because you just have the driest sense of humor. So today, Bob, we're picking up on a series where we finished last series on the 4 identities of a human. Just very quickly, Bob, where did that come from? I had somebody ask me already, where did this come from? Where did you get this? And I started to go through my head. I was like, this just feels basic to me, but is there somebody who we could turn to go, oh, they said this first? The 4 identities of a human?
I think several different sources to it. One is in our Restoring the Glory material, we developed this, but part of the influence of that was the Institute for Priestly Formation. It talks about some of these identities.
Okay.
But even prior to that, just seeing that in counseling work and just how the organic development, and then seeing it in Jesus's life and in Mary's life. So it's just a lot of different influences.
Yeah, it's not like one book that we read and then you can go read that book or whatever. Yeah, it's an integration of a lot of different things. So we're building off of that and kind of really piggybacking off the last episode in that series, which is Mother, Father. And we thought about now having a series that we focus in on mothering and fathering and the various, I liked how you put it a second ago, the various vocations that you live that out of. So, Bob, where are we headed now in this next series that's 3 parts?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about how to live this out in those different vocations and with biological parents, and I'll introduce our guests here in a second, and then with spiritual parenting, and then with the religious vocation, and how is that lived out there?
So mothering and fathering you get from all different places. I think that's just a cool emphasis that I want to lay the groundwork. I think a lot of Catholics, even Christians maybe, but particularly Catholics, will approach people and go, oh, I'm not really allowed to have you as a spiritual mother or father because you're quote unquote kind of taken because you already have kids. And the only person I can go to is my priest or the sister that comes to school on Fridays, and I can maybe talk to her. But I think what we're trying to do is say in the kingdom of God, this maternity and paternity that the Lord desires for us is very rich. And we're trying to activate, I think, the hearts of men and women to realize that we're all called to be mother and father. We're all called to all 4 identities. And our guests today are exciting because they do two of these categories very, very well. Obviously, they're married, so they're not doing priest and religious sister, but they're biological parents as well as spiritual parents. And then, but we're going to emphasize more biological. I want people to have more of that awareness in their lives, because I think there's a lot of healing that can come from realizing the body of Christ is rich with maternity and paternity. And it's not like I got to sit around and no one's going to ever love me in those places. That's just not true. So, Bob, I think you know these people who are on today. I'm not sure. Did you call who? Why don't you introduce them? I think you might know them.
Yeah, we were talking right beforehand about having Heather on for 5 times. It would be good to have somebody in my family again. No.
Classic. Here's a Bob dig.
Yeah.
So who do we have with us?
So this is my daughter, Carrie, and my son, Duane, my son-in-law's son, Duane. And Carrie's been a delight as a daughter all these years. And she and Duane have edited and written a lot on these areas of parenting and the identities, and Mary and Joseph being role models. But just want to share a quick story. I prayed for my children's spouses from the time they were born. And when Duane came into the picture, I really liked him from the very beginning, and I knew Carrie loved him, and Margie loved him, and Kristen loved him. But I didn't know where he was faith-wise. And so it was kind of like, oh, is this the answer to prayer or not? And God just worked that in his life in a beautiful way. And you'll begin to hear how that happened. But a particular time where he became more than a son-in-law or a future son-in-law and became a son was on the Feast of St. Joseph. And Duane and I went on retreat together with the Brotherhood of Hope. Wow. And I remember sitting next to him in adoration, and just the Holy Spirit placing on my heart. You're talking about parenthood and spiritual parenthood, and I just had this welling up of love and affection and tears as I said, I'm just glad to receive you and love you as a son, and wow. As Joseph did with Jesus,
Wow.
So one of the books that Duane and Carrie have published is on St. Joseph, and, it's just been really meaningful in that way.
Carrie, Duane, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
This is fantastic. I can echo the sentiment way. I don't obviously know Carrie, you and Duane as much as Bob does for obvious reasons, but it's been an absolute pleasure and privilege. One of the things, so listeners, to bring you into the inside world of Bob and I and what that's like every time Bob and I get together for a priest event, when I go down to do those events with him, almost every Wednesday night, we go over and have dinner with Carrie and Duane. And so you guys have welcomed me into your home, and I've gotten to see the inner workings of family life, which is so fun at your gigantic kitchen table, which is absolutely the best. And it's such a beautiful thing. So when Bob said, hey, let's talk about this next series, what do you think about Carrie and Duane? I was like, yeah, that's fantastic. So I'm going to set you up just a tiny bit, but fill in the blanks here just about the general details. So you've been married 27-ish?
25 years in October.
25 in October, and you have 9 kids.
We do.
And the range of those?
So our oldest, she's out of college and turned 23 in May. And we have a 13-month-old as the youngest.
That is amazing. So okay, so here just a couple, like let's move some of the stereotypes out of the way. So you're up there in the MVPs or all-stars of Catholic families because you've crossed thresholds. You might be Hall of Fame worthy, but you have a breadth of age and all of the kids. And so in the midst of all of that, was it always intentional to have a big family, or was it, man, family's rich, let's just keep doing this? What was your heart there when you started to know?
I'm just glad that you didn't say you're up there in age. I thought that's what you were going. And then it just
No, we're like pretty close in age. So yeah.
No, we're very young at heart, right? But you're an empty nester, and we have a 1-year-old. So,
Yeah, a little bit different.
yeah. But yeah, my favorite movie was Sound of Music, and I was like, yes, I love big families. I love children. I shared it with Duane when we were dating. He was like, really? Like, that's your favorite? No. But
Awesome.
I think that my heart, like, I've always known I wanted to be a mom, and I love the idea of a big family, but I thought big was like 4, maybe 5. And I think we were both kind of in agreement of like, maybe that would look like 3-year spacing between children. Just kind of all the
typical storylines you hear from everywhere, right? Perfectly spaced. Everybody's ready to go. Yeah.
So yeah, 9 was actually the number that I thought in my head would be too much. Like 8, I knew people with 8, but I didn't know any with 9. So I just feel like it's the Lord's sense of humor just to like go just a little bit further. And like, praise God, like he's just been such a joy, our youngest.
Yeah. And I think the one in between, there's a big gap. So his older brother is 8. So there's a fairly large gap there between 8 and 9 too. So definitely the caboose and the surprise, but lots of joy and laughter and fun with him so far.
Yeah.
He has been a great joy. And his older brother, who's 8, has been praying for him since he was old enough to pray that he wanted a brother.
Yep.
And we kept saying, I think God knows we're done.
Like, stop praying, buddy. Stop praying. Okay, so again, listeners, you probably have more of my vantage point in this. So I just want to draw you in because you think, there's images maybe going off in our heads right now. You can look and see in the show notes and stuff. I just want you to see a picture. We'll have some pictures of the family so you can just get a cross section of, oh, there they all are. When you think 11, I think most people go, oh, you're walking into a disorganized zoo. That's what you would expect to walk into their house. But I can tell you that is not the case at all. So honestly, you're just like, it's 11 people. And most of them are not capable of doing anything. And so I walked in, I remember for the first time and going, holy, this is like, my house doesn't look like this. My kids don't do that. So I started to pause and reflect and go, whoa, okay, we've got some serious gifting here. You guys your family isn't chaotic. Now I know you'd probably go, Jake, just come back on Thursday or whatever, but but whatever you do on Wednesdays when I come over, it's amazing. Whether it be the candy, I don't know what you do. But I know that speaks to a greater reality because I've seen your kids sit at a table. I've seen them hold conversation, and I've seen the various ages do it. I've seen their respectfulness. I've seen them play hard. I've seen them get scrapes on their knees and get irritated with each other. So I've witnessed this, and I just go, something is really cool here. Something's different here than what you typically see. So I want our listeners to have that because if you're looking at this family with me, you're going, I want to know more. I want to learn here because that's definitely been my disposition of just, simple observation. So I think some of the things that where my heart is to go today, because parenting is so stinking hard. Like I have 3, they were intentionally close together and we're in the stage now of where you think, oh, we're done. Yeah. And then you go, no, we're not. Like, holy crap. I thought we were done. And no, we're not even close to done. My joke is kids always wear diapers. The diapers just change from physical stuff that you have to wipe up to emotional stuff. And now their diapers are just big and emotional. We're still dealing with that. You know what? So you have the breadth. You've got I'm just trying to think of a place to start of when you think about parenting. What are some of the first things that come to mind when you go, you know what? This is essential for our well-being. Is it like, people go, oh, it's date nights. Is that the secret? Like what is it? Like, what's the stuff?
They nice. We just didn't start having those till a little bit ago.
Yeah, like a couple years ago. Like we're like, wait, do we live in the same house? Can we have a conversation? I would say, Jake, first of all, thank you. Thank you for your, just your kind words. It is beautiful, also chaotic. But I really feel like what Dad shared in the beginning about like how he's prayed since we were very young for his spouses and for our families is just so fundamental to, being blessed enough to end up with a spouse like Duane. And I think that for me, I feel like it starts with Duane's sacrifice. So Dad's prayer and then Duane's sacrifice, because I feel like as a dad, one of the things that, and I can get emotional talking about this, that he's constantly putting every one of us ahead of himself every day for the last 25 years that we've been married. And, when people will marvel at the things that I'm doing or, the books I'm writing or the conferences I'm speaking at, I'm always like, if you knew my husband. And I know he's probably really embarrassed because he hates ever to be affirmed in any way. But to me, I would say that for us, the secret sauce is his ability to lay down his life constantly for us. And I know it's not easy. I know it's really been a hard road of, like he'll tease, like I don't have friends and I don't have social life. And I'm not saying that's the model, but
sure.
But like he's always willing to do the hard thing that blesses our family, which I think has been part of the beautiful fruit of what we've been able to do, this hard job, It's always, sacrifice is always the sauce.
Yeah. So Carrie, let me ask a follow-up, because I think what every man maybe doesn't, I'm just going to say it how I would say it. So pardon me, because I can be blunt sometimes. Every man wants to be sexy. And what I'm hearing you say is that the sexiest thing that Duane does is sacrifice for his family and be the last amongst the 11.
It is by far the sexiest thing a man can do.
Yeah, I think Carrie has a picture on her phone of me
laundry,
wearing the baby and putting the dishes in the dishwasher. And she's like, that's her wallpaper. That's what that looks like. Yeah, there's no
awesome.
None of that. That's her wallpaper. Yeah. It's me, on a sling and putting the dishes in the dishwasher. That's hers right there.
So Duane, what? That's not easy. Like, where's this come from? What goes on in your heart? Why? Like, bring us into your heart there.
Yeah, I mean, Carrie gave a lot of credit to me, but I think we've been asked this before. I mean, obviously with Bob and the prayers ahead of time preparing us, I think the foundation he laid. I think us going into the marriage, we were very much in agreement how we wanted to pursue and raise kids and have a family. So we were very locked in, and we'd always agree, we'd always handle it. But I think overall, with the big picture of what we envisioned, we were very much aligned, which I think makes it very easy from that standpoint. Was it easy? No. I mean, we had several kids who were very close in age. Couple that, sometimes we had some illnesses and Carrie wasn't feeling good, and money's always financially is tight, and then we just have a tremendous support structure. I mean, Bob and Margie, Kristen, Carrie's sister, our larger scope in Tallahassee, we have tremendous community here, other like-minded parents and families. So our kids were exposed to that from the beginning, and I think that's all just continued to resonate and hold them accountable. I mean, we very rarely miss family dinners together. We've made that a priority. So we are usually always together most days of the week, which is unusual nowadays. The kids are very well formed. A lot of credit from Carrie with early teachings and focusing and prayers, during the day. So it's just been a lot there. And I think from my perspective, just want to make sure you're raising, really strong people to go in the world. It's not an easy world to live in, obviously, with the way we live and how we view things. They have to be strong in their faith, and we just are determined to kind of do that and fight for them. And that's kind of where it's at. And those are my pieces where I can really fit in well. Carrie has a lot of strength, so I just kind of cater to what I do well and support her. And it's been a really good team for us overall.
No Their nickname is Team Daunt.
It works well.
Yeah, you'd have to be, Bob, what's on your heart just hearing this?
Just gratitude and love for them, and just to be grandfather to the kids and father to them, and just see how dedicated they've been, and just everything a dad could want for their kids and their grandkids. Not that it's perfect, it does,
Mm-hmm.
we'll get into some of that probably too, but it's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
just really beautiful. It's just to see where their hearts are, and just to know the dedication, the waking up every middle of the night, still 25
Still.
years later.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
just their dedication to love each other and to love the kids. I couldn't be prouder as a dad.
I think another cool aspect too is with the Bob's Work and Center, the amount of priests and religious that we have come through the house is really cool. So Sister Mary lived with us for several months while she was working on stuff, and we have lots of priests. I think it's all of that helps the kids see what that looks like and continues to build their faith. I mean, it's just a tremendous experience for them. So it's been just the community we have is just phenomenal. That's part of really the success. We joke it takes not a village but a small country around here to help.
Yes.
That's what it is. So
That's so good. I'm moved in various directions. Bob, your heart's opening up in a way that maybe no one's ever. We can see it, but do you want to talk a bit more, Bob, about what's going on for you?
Yeah, just the gratitude and love that I have.
Yeah,
it just touches my heart. It's we started a publishing company called Heart of the Holy Family, and I think that's what I see in their hearts. They really have. Carrie's written a book on Mary and the identities, and Duane and Carrie on St. Joseph, and they've written other books, but it's coming out of that heart of the Holy Family. It's been right at the center of Margie and I getting married in Holy Family Parish, and it being so critical in our life, and just to see the way they live that out is just, more so than Margie and I. It's just like it's such gratitude to God to see what they've done and how they've done it.
Almost feel like, Bob, you're encountering the heart of a seasoned father. Like you've doubled basically, because I'm in the same age demographic as Carrie and Duane. So you've doubled our time basically in this arena. What's so beautiful is it delights your heart to see your sons and daughters thrive.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, a taste of the Father, right? We get to see a bit of the Father's heart in you to go, he just rejoices when the kingdom comes. And it's not for his sake alone. You're not sitting back with your arms crossed right now going, all glory be to me, Bob, who made all this happen, right? That's the furthest thing from what's going on. Like you're delighting in your children doing well.
Yeah. And you've met each of the grandchildren. Each of them are just such good people.
They are.
Just good, solid, loving people. And, just to know the sacrifices that Carrie and Duane have done for that.
The other thing that I'm being moved by, Bob, I'm gonna love you as a brother now and let you have some breathing room, because boy,
Thank you.
the therapist in me is like, here we go.
He's ready to pounce.
Yeah, I'll lovingly back away. So I'm actually just writing some things down here, and I think it's just a quick pause. So listeners, I know listeners, everybody wants the silver bullet. We're all looking for the silver bullet of like, oh, it was date nights, or oh, it's Wednesday nights, and you got to have the thing, and you got to bring people over, and like, no, it's not. Everybody wants the quick fix silver bullet thing, and what I'm writing down is more of a. It's like, what am I trying to say? It's almost like the pillars that stuff is built on, and each one of those pillars requires attention and effort. And what I'm hearing is that, Duane, you came into the picture, which is echoing what we've been talking about in this series with son, brother, husband, father, right? There's this nod to the sonship and the brotherhood that you had experienced that you're bringing to the table when you and Carrie got married. And we're just almost, I just want listeners for you to see that's the fruit of what we're talking about. Because how does the first thing right out of the gate was Carrie saying, Duane's sacrifice is the heartbeat of our family. So a core pillar is this man's willingness to lay down his life for his family. And what I know about sacrifice is that does not come easy. Sacrifice is unnatural. And so to be able to do it as consistently requires some stuff to already be in a man's bones and soul before you get married. Because sacrifice, it shows a man what's there. It reveals what's there. Either weakness, and then you address the weakness, or strength, and you put more weight on it. And you build higher and taller. And so I'm sure both were exposed in you, Duane, and that we know that that's fair. But what I think isn't being maybe said explicitly is that you were up for it. Like you were up for it. You're like, let's do this. And I mean, I know you have a very gentle heart, but you've got a fierce heart too. I've seen that. You're a competitor. You have a military background. You're not a pushover. You're not a wimp. And so there's this stuff in your bones that's there that I want men, you dads, to hear how important that is.
And you men who will be dads.
And yes, now's the time, right? Because Duane, where I'm this is my long-winded way to get to ask you a question, but I'm trying to set stuff up so people can go, oh, I know what to listen for now. I think, Bob, we've said this story before, but if not, I'm going to say it now because I think, Duane, it'll set you up really well. I was at a John Eldredge event. I'm standing with a very good friend, and this guy comes up to me, and my friend and I are talking about our wives giving us swords, like literally bestowing swords on us. Have I shared this story, Bob? Do you remember this?
I don't remember.
Okay. So I'm at an Eldredge event. We're about to walk up to meet John Eldredge, who in a lot of our minds was kind of the hero. He was like the William Wallace of sorts. And so we're going up to meet him. And my friend and I are talking about our journeys as men, waiting in line to meet this guy who has been a hero to us. And we're talking about literal swords that our wives gave us. So, you might be like, what? Your wives gave you swords? Like, long story, but it was a representative thing. It meant a lot, etc. And there was a guy behind us who was listening to my friend and I talking this whole time. And the guy behind us interrupts us and goes, well, that must be nice. And we're like, what? And we turned around and he goes, well, that must be nice to be given a sword. My wife's never given me a sword. And out of my guts, with no filter, which is part of my problem, I said right away to him, maybe if you lived your life in such a way to be worthy of one, she would have given you one. So maybe the problem isn't her, maybe it's you. And then he just kind of put his head down, and I looked at Simon and was like, did I just crush that guy? I don't mean to be uncharitable. I didn't want to like smack him across the head to knock him out. But at the same time, dude, stop complaining. So Duane, you've come into the picture. What was your story like? Like, you didn't just show up at the day of the retreat and go, oh, here's St. Joseph. I'll just be like him. Like, that's not the story. Like, give us some background.
Yeah, so my story probably starts a little different. So I grew up with a single mom, so my dad wasn't in the picture at all from little, immediately all the way until ever really. So my mom remarried, with I have a couple half brothers and stuff. So we never really had that kind of, dad wasn't in the picture for me. Probably the biggest piece. So I did have my grandfather, pretty old school, very great, tremendous work ethic from that standpoint, still on the values of what work looks like, how to do that and how to be there and kind of do that stuff. Not necessarily on the family side, but definitely from a work ethic perspective. Mm-hmm. So that definitely helped. And education was important to him as well, but not really, the dad influence. None of that was present for me at that time.
Wow.
Luckily, besides him, I was very blessed to have some really good mentors that helped, kind of as I went through stuff, but really not. And then from a, religious perspective, was baptized early, but never really part of the Catholic Church growing up. Mm-hmm. Kind of visited some other churches and went to stuff. And then was blessed when we met Carrie. We started going to Good Shepherd, and just really from that standpoint, really identify with the church and what it stood for. And then, yeah, you mentioned my military background. Do have some of that in the family, so maybe it runs genetically a little bit from that standpoint and from a service perspective, and identifying that there's things that are bigger than ourselves and there's things that are important, for you to work towards and sacrifice for. And that kind of translates a lot to me and how I view our family and our kids and what I want to relay for them and set them up for. So yeah, so definitely grew. And then that retreat Bob mentions, adoration for me was amazing then, still really dear to my heart. Whenever I really need a reset point or a big decision or discernment, I usually immediately turn to adoration. It's a great experience for me. I've done it several times. Don't get there enough, unfortunately, but
Sure.
Just a tremendous opportunity to really open up and see that. And then just have been very blessed to have great friends and men to see how they live. And, like I said, with Bob and other men in my family, and just understanding what it looks like. And really, from our standpoint, it's just every day is getting up. And I think even on our marriage encounter, you heard the quote, like, it's not ever 50-50, right? There's a lot of days where it's 100-0, but that's what it takes those days to commit to it. So yeah, but just blessed. And Carrie's sacrificed a lot. Even just last couple of nights, been up with the baby and stuff. So yeah, we've been very blessed to have so many folks in our lives that have been praying for us and have been great friends and mentors for me. So yeah,
that's beautiful. Carrie, tell us a little bit more about your background. Then I want to get into the parenting stuff. So, obviously, you're the daughter of Bob Schutz. It must have been perfect, right? And
right. I'm perfect.
Right.
That's all there is to say.
Right. Yeah.
I like to tease because that's something I get obviously all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, like, oh well, of course you're doing ministry in this because you don't have any wounds. You grew up with Bob Schutz's dad, and I like to tease when I talk to different groups of people that, like, growing up with my dad didn't always wasn't always as great as it sounds. Like, we were his first guinea pigs.
Yep.
My sister and I, like, so, when other kids' parents would get mad at them and they would put them, like, on restrictions or they would go to timeout, like, we had to role play, Jake. This was.
You did sculpts like a
We did sculpts, yes.
Versions .0 of the sculpt.
And we didn't know that this wasn't normal until our friends started being like, wait, what did you do? Like, what is this? And so finally, at one point when we were teenagers, I was like, Dad, can you just hit us and get this over with?
That is so good.
Be like everybody else.
I just wanted to be like everybody else.
Right.
But no, I mean, obviously, it's wonderful to have grown up with that kind of context, to have that healing context, and be able to understand that things are often more than what you see on the surface. To be able to grow up with that understanding and the gift of, like, Dad's compassion and my mom's compassion and their mercy, and, like, being able to see that played itself out. And then, my dad came from a large family. My mom came from a large family. And even though there was just my sister and I, it was always just something that we watched and encountered that was, obviously a huge blessing for us in our lives. But yeah, I would say that, listening to your guys' series on the 4 identities, that my sister identity, even though I have this wonderful, beautiful sister who I grew up with and is my best friend, probably with my peers is my greatest area of woundedness.
Wow.
And so I've written a lot and talked a lot about this, but just in those places of insecurity, like, the Lord wanting to redeem and restore those places. And I think it's been a big part of my healing journey as I've come into this place as mother. Like, we always think that this whole, like you were saying, like this beautiful scaffolding of, ideas of to be a good daughter and then to learn to be a sister and then to be a mom. And for me, I feel like the Lord has been very good at, like, healing almost backwards, as you run into these places, having this large family, you have your first adolescent daughter and the Lord's like, okay, now we're going to go to adolescence, like,
yes.
or whatever place and phase that you're in, just the economical nature of God's mercy to be able to meet us in the places of our own woundedness in our own hearts, and recognizing that and having the context of that has been a gift, but also completely humbling all the time. Like, we're never, even being Bob Schutz's daughter, there's always places of healing to be had.
I'll
Yes.
steal the thunder. I'm also Bob Schutz's son-in-law, so I get that. That's on my
You do.
that's what I put on there. So
Yeah. I saw that on your license. That was really cool. Waiting to have that one. Yeah.
now I'm Carrie Daunt's husband is what I am now. That one now.
You're like, you got the ultimate man card.
I do.
Carrie, you're mentioning, sorry, Bob. I'm so excited to talk to them. I'm like, oh, right, Bob's here. I should probably bring him in now and again.
You're doing fine, Jake. You're doing fine.
Okay. I feel like this is like part 2 with your mom. Like, this is so fascinating. Bob, just hang out. I'll get to you in a second. But Carrie, you're mentioning something. Just, I think that I want to. You skimmed over it, but man, is it something that happens a lot in parenting? And I just want to highlight it. You said, oh, and I had my first teenage daughter, and then the Lord's like, we're going to go to teenage place. And so this is how I understood what you meant by that is what's weird in parenting, and man, is it the divine economy. And if you don't have this lens to interpret it, it's hard to get what the Lord's up to, is that so often the age that your kid is at that you're parenting, so I'm parenting a newborn or I'm parenting a teenager, whatever, activates and triggers your own woundedness at the same age. Is that right, Carrie? That's what you're saying?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And I found that praying with other women too. And it's been a neat thing to be able to like connect those dots. Like, oh, your child is at that age,
right.
that makes sense that this is coming up now,
or even just something that happens triggers something that a memory, not the same age, was a rejection or something, and then immediately will pick up. So you can definitely identify that with a significant period in your life or something. So yeah, there's a lot of constant reliving of things, I think, and going through it with them. Absolutely.
Bob, have you noticed that and just in general and work with folks? I know I sure have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's in our work as therapists too. When we're working with people, we're reliving that, but you do that as a parent at every stage. And it's like wherever the wounds are brings up the inadequacy too. It's like, most of the time being a parent for me was a joy and a breeze. But when I was struggling at different places, it was always a place that it was bringing up a woundedness that I hadn't dealt with or hadn't really completely worked through.
So listeners, what we're articulating here is in your parenting, if you're noticing a particular struggle, you're noticing like, why is this so hard? Or why is my kid driving me nuts? It can be, it's worth pausing to, go, what was my life like at this age? So I've got my 8-year-old here and I'm just, wow, I'm very triggered by them, or I always feel sad around them, or I'm always irritated at them, or whatever. What was my life like at this age? And what was happening there? Lord, what do you want me to know here? It's wild how much. So I'll share a personal story. I'm in a prayer time. I'm praying about my own sonship. And I was about 5 years old. And so a lot of the dynamics with me, I was exposed to pornography at 6. And so it was right around that age. And I was just working on that stuff, really grieved. And lo and behold, as I'm in the midst of that prayer, I hear this little knock on the door in the prayer room. And who comes in but my 5-year-old son and climbs right up in my lap. He doesn't typically, this isn't a normal thing for him. It was like this day, he just wanted to be there with me. So he comes and sits in my lap, and I'm holding my 5-year-old son while I'm working on a 5-year-old part of me.
Yeah.
And it was like this, whoa, and so the goal here is not projection to go, oh, I'm going to put that on my kid. That's not the goal at all. But man, you want to talk about a vivid reminder of how old you are, what it feels like to be 5, or the maturity levels. Could you imagine a 5-year-old having to go through that, right? Often you're just shocked looking at someone else at that age, but when you look at yourself, you're like, oh, that's what I've always known. It's my story. But then you look at somebody else and go, oh my word. So it's weird how the Lord heals through family. In parenting, the Lord's going, oh, I'm still wanting to love you deeper into yourself. Like you're not, quote unquote, off the hook.
Yeah, if I could just add kind of as you're saying that, I'm picturing Duane at the birth of each of their children. And he's just holding the babies. He delivered the first 4, right?
Yeah, I started sharing after that. Let some folks get
not
involved.
everybody.
Yeah,
You
take turns.
What? Okay, hold on a second. He delivered the first 4 babies?
Yeah, the doctor was there, but he
at the hospital.
Yeah,
yeah.
but he invited Duane to deliver the first 4, and I was there for the third. Yeah, and just
you're like coaching and stuff. Okay, Bob, you can't just move on from that because that's not normal.
He's not coaching. The doctor's coaching.
Delivering babies, yeah.
Yeah, but
wow.
Oh, Jake, after the first one, he had just finished his graduate degree, and like 3 days before, and we're in the delivery room. He's able to catch the baby, and he whispers in my ear, "Can I go back to medical school?" And I'm like,
"Oh wow,
no, we have
no, that is awesome."
Yeah,
bills.
Yeah, but
that's amazing.
But what I saw, I mean, I saw it in the movies with the other ones, but when I saw it live with Ryan, the third one, when I was present in the room, and just him holding the baby and tears just pouring down from him onto the baby as he's holding his children, and my heart for him as a dad, he never had his dad there, you know. He didn't have a dad receiving him at that point, and just to feel Duane's heart for each of his kids as they're being born just was really touching.
Man, so we're touching on it again, the heart of a father in parenting and how important that is. And listeners, you probably don't know Duane. Duane is not the kind of guy to go, everybody step aside, let me get the center of the tension here. Like, this is so... Duane is his uncomfortable meter is high right now. But it's awesome to be able to bless and affirm you, Duane, in the midst of all of this. Yeah. That's so beautiful. So I just want to list some things. So I've written down like 7 things already that I'm hearing as pillars. So the first thing I'm hearing in your guys' parenting, you didn't necessarily come in perfect. So, Duane, I love the reality. You never had a father figure as strong as maybe others. And what I love about that is, and the father said, "Oh, I can provide, son." And he did. And we're witnessing the evidence of that. And so there's intentional parenting you both received, Duane and Carrie. That's like this foundational background picture. And then we go into, Duane, a heart of masculinity and a heart of sacrifice. And then you guys talked about having vision and alignment about what's parenting and family going to look like. Like, I imagine you discussed, like, this is our line and we don't go there and that's not okay. And we're going to let them play hard. And, obviously I've watched your kids roll down hills and stuff and you guys just laugh. So I go, okay, that was intentional. You're not doing, and then you've mentioned support and community, the absolute essential nature of community, the integration of your Catholic life, do whatever it takes, always be open to more. Like, you're listing these beautiful, simple criteria that are just coming out of you because you can't help it. But as I'm trying to listen, I'm like, man, these are such good anchor points or pillar points for parenting. So maybe I can ask you guys, maybe each of you could say one. Tell us about an experience where you're like, okay, that went really well. We left the situation, we looked at one another and was like, heck yeah, we just loved our kids really well there. And then tell us about one where you looked at each other and went, I think everything's going to hell in a handbasket. Like, can you bring us? No, we won't tell you about how many are in each category. We won't make you go there, but hopefully you've done one of each. And then, yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
I know, that's a really good question.
It is hard because I know some of the struggle is like you don't see it right away. And Karen and I've had this conversation. Like, we may never see it, to be honest with you. It may never. We may be long gone. It'll be the next generation where it impacts. It is just a process that you may never see the fruit of. So it is a challenge sometimes to realize, is all that labor and work that we put into it going to make a difference, right? So you're trusting and praying in that. But I mean, there's days that I think go really well, and there's other days where at night I just question. I'll personally be. I mean, that was really poor on my part, and you just question yourself. And I think that's part of it too. Is we're open to feedback, and we talk to each other like why did you do that? Why are you there? What was the reaction? How do we get better? And I think with having so many kids, we've really learned that each child, just like people, are different and have their own styles.
Mm.
And parenting is not a uniform approach. You do have to modify. It's like leading a team. Some folks are very easy. You can be vocal with in their face and they're good with. Other ones you have to kind of coach on the side. And I think the kids are very much like that. So I think overall, I think the collective moments, I think, it feels pretty good. But there are definitely days where we just shake our heads and wow, that was just an utter mess.
Yeah.
So,
especially if it involves vacationing, traveling.
Okay, traveling.
Yes. Actually, I have a recent one that I feel like kind of encapsulates both.
Oh,
So,
sweet.
That's good. I want to hear this.
Yeah. So, I was just really moved by the Holy Spirit. Like during the school year, we're able to sit down. I'm able to sit down with the kids that are at home, and we read the scripture, and we kind of do like a Socratic discussion about it, and we pray together, and just how the kids kind of pull out like what's stirring in their hearts. And I realized like I didn't feel connected with the kids in a while, and I really felt like the Holy Spirit said, "Stop what you're doing today, put those aside, and I want you to go pray with the kids. Like just do what you were doing during the school year, because it's summer and we're just in a different routine." And so we did. And while we're in the middle of it, I noticed that our youngest daughter, her like tears just are starting to well up in her eyes.
Wow.
And I felt like the Lord was asking me to apologize because we've had this baby this last year and I haven't been as present to them in the ways that I wanted, that I had been. And so I just started to apologize, and then more tears. And then she came over and she sat with me. And I said, "Honey, what's going on in your heart? Can you share what's going on in your heart?" And like she could barely get it out, but she said, "Last night I woke up and I was scared. And I went into your room to get you, but the baby was in the bed and you were so exhausted looking, I didn't want to bother you. And so I went back in my room and cried myself to sleep." Ugh.
Yeah.
And then I started to get emotional. And I said, "Honey, I am so, so sorry that happened." And Duane happened to walk in a few minutes later after we had, I'd gone to him and I was like, "Oh, guess what happened?" And, whatever. And we were talking about it. And actually she walked in and he said to her, "Honey, you can wake up Daddy." And I said, "Yes, wake up Daddy." But then we were both able to like hug her and love on her together in that moment. And I feel like there was something so beautiful. Like, even though we didn't get it right the first time, that we came back to it.
Wow.
Like it was a grace, and it was a moment of following the Holy Spirit instead of what I wanted to be doing that day in that moment. But yeah, it's just sobering because there's every day, Jake, there's so many things that we miss. So many things, like important things, like things that I know that our friends and family members who have a lot less children would be like, "Why are you missing this? And see, this is why you shouldn't have this many children." And you're the old people who live in a shoe who have so many children, you don't know what to do, But I feel like over the years, though, one of the things, just speaking of the healing aspect of it, that we began doing at night was blessing the children. Like after they're asleep, I just go in their rooms and like praying for any of those holes that we left, because we know we left a million.
Wow.
To be filled with Jesus's blood. Just praying that over them, so that, because we know we're going to make mistakes. We know we constantly make mistakes, and our older children constantly tell us about the mistakes.
Thanks, guys.
And then our older children come home and tell us how we're doing it all wrong with our younger children.
Yep.
There's enough humility to go around, I think, every day.
I guess overall, the biggest piece of doing it right was when the baby was born, we found out we were pregnant even. Not one of the kids was angry, disappointed. I think they're all more excited and have just enjoyed his presence. So I think that's probably been the biggest thing overall, just seeing their excitement and joy that he's brought and how much they love being with him. Our older kids coming home from college or away immediately gravitates. I think maybe, not at one moment per se, but just seeing the fact that how much they love him innately, I think has been amazing to watch. So yeah.
It's awesome. Jake, I'm going to turn the tables here a second.
Okay.
A couple seconds ago, your eyes were welling up as Carrie was sharing that. Can I draw that out?
Which part? My eyes have been welling up almost the whole time. So you need to tell me which part you saw.
Carrie was talking about what had happened with her daughter and not waking up in the middle of the night. And
well, numerous things. One, I as a boy have done that exact experience.
Yeah.
There was no baby though. in the bed. I just walked in, looked at my parents and went, nope. And then I went back to my room. And it wasn't, it was just an assessment. Like you walk in, you're scared, you have need, you assess the situation and go, I can't go there. And so you pull your need back in and you go back into your room. So I know that experience personally, and I can visualize it literally. I see my parents on either side of the bed. I see the whole situation and feel the heaviness of that. So that's one part of it. And I think another part of it that moves me is the approachability, right? To be able to say that. I think my parents, if I had gone to them and said, this is what I was feeling, I think they would have been concerned. To give my parents some credit, that my parents, they get large doses of humility, whether they like it or not, because they have a son who's a therapist and does a podcast and constantly criticizes them. And so there you go, mom and dad, you're welcome. But they would have met me, I think, there with need, but just for they would have met my need as best they could, but for a bunch of other reasons, that dynamic's there. And I think another dynamic is, as a kid, if your parents have the stuff you need and are looking for. Like you just assess, right? You can't help but do it. Kids, we're constantly assessing, are they going to be able to meet me here? Is my need going to be met here? And so, Carrie and Duane, just watching I see in you that you do have the capacity. And so there's just a ministry to my heart that happens because it's like the capacity does exist. It does. Not every parent is running on fumes or totally incapacitated. And to watch you guys do it with 9 kids means you've dug deep. You've had to find gears that you didn't know existed when you had to get up for the 6th night in a row, and then things blow up the next day at 4 p.m. Dinner has to be made. 3 kids have soccer practice, right? Like you guys know those worlds. And so you're digging into gears and places that as a kid, you wish and hope for a parent to have the juice to get through those things. Because if they don't, you're left empty. And so the labor and the pouring out that comes from a parent is so high, and you just don't ever want your parent to run out, because that means you go without, So just watching you guys it's blessing me, because I'm going, it does exist at a high capacity. It exists. And that's just healing.
But there have been days and seasons, Jake, where we've definitely run out. Like we've been in the SOS mode.
Sure.
And, and that's the stuff where the Lord has really helped us to grow because of that stretching, the new wineskins, just the new places of really revealing his love for us so that we could pour out what we didn't have, what we weren't capable of or didn't have the capacity for.
Share the experience when Jack was born, because I think that's a good illustration of that.
Yeah. So John David is our 4th born, and he was our 4th. So our oldest at that time wasn't quite 5. So we had 4 under the age of 5. So it was like, yes, we're open to kids, and we are going to have 4 kids right in a row.
Yeah.
And we were young parents. Like I wasn't even 30 yet. So Duane was working really, really hard to make ends meet. We were building a house. Like it was just a really, really difficult season. We were actually living with my parents because our house sold really quickly. And
3 little kids there.
With 3 little kids, right. My poor parents, they were so gracious, and then I went on bed rest when I was pregnant with them at the end of that. So relying on their care while Duane was working and then working on the house. And it was just a really difficult season. And so then we have this 4th baby. And I didn't know how blessed we were to have 3 babies before that were really very easy. And then our 4th sweet little guy was born almost 10 pounds and lots of birth trauma.
Biggest so far.
Big baby, and was colicky. And screamed and screamed and screamed and screamed and screamed. So here we had 3 little kids, 1 2-year-old who got into everything everywhere at a house that wasn't his. And, it was just one of those seasons. And Duane he wasn't home. He was trying to get the house finished so that we could get moved out. And
working full time.
Right. And the only thing that would make Jack stop crying at this point was to nurse. So I would literally sit on the couch and nurse him all day long, like for 6-8 weeks. Like it was just constant. Like, so I'm watching the kids like do crazy everywhere while I'm sitting down and nursing so he wouldn't scream and make everybody crazy. And so finally, at some point, we had just moved into our new house, and he was just old enough where he was starting to like really make eye contact and look at us. And I was nursing him, and he looked up at me with he has the most gorgeous blue eyes and just piercing blue eyes. And he just smiled. And in that moment, it was like this expansion of my heart. Like I had been a mom 3 times before this, but like never had I given a yes like this before. And I remember looking at him, and I remember thinking, this is my body. This is my body given up for you. This is my whole being. Like this is everything that I have. And it is like in that moment, it was like this huge outpouring. It was like I could feel the Holy Spirit just filling up all of these dry places within me to like have this new capacity just to love and to give and to serve, and like in a desire to, like in a different way. Not like, oh, this is something I have to get through, but like this is something I was made for. Like this is the stuff of like love. And like love isn't about a feeling, it's not about a circumstance, it's about sacrifice. And then once you're able to push into it, it's like the beauty of the resurrection, you know, like there's so much goodness in it. And not that we haven't had lots of other moments of pushing through those things, but like for me, that was a defining moment in my motherhood of like, what a gift and a privilege to be able to provide that kind of life for somebody else, you know?
Wow.
And Duane, around that same time, you kind of hit a crisis point in terms of providing and all that kind of stuff. You want to talk about that? Because I think that's a very real thing with a large family.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone through a couple of times. Yeah, work is just, I mean, living in Tallahassee, I think most folks would probably know it's pretty limited from a business perspective and opportunities for jobs and income levels. And have gone through a couple of seasons where, the finances just weren't working, and just the stress of, mortgage and food and just the normal expenses. And we try not to live, we don't certainly live extravagantly. We don't take a lot of it. I think we just went on our first vacation like a couple of years ago, probably dropped one of our older kids off. Yeah. So that usually is a key point, a trigger for me. When we start feeling that pinch, there was definitely a concern there. Like, how are you going to pay for all these kids and all the stuff that comes with it, right? So there's a lot of stress that comes with that. I'm sure there was times we weren't. I mean, Carrie's operating a little sleep. I'm operating a little sleep. She's worried about the kids. I'm worried about the house and the finances and all those things that come with it. So a lot of struggles and stress there. And not even still feel that. You always feel that today, even like, how am I going to pay for college and weddings and all their stuff that comes with it? But I've been very blessed. I mean, we get just always been answered. We continue to see things and experience things that help us through that. But it's always going to be, as a man, I think that's where I identify with. That's where identity is. So we stress about that constantly. So been better trying to, trust more and see that, and not be, I used to be super anal on the budget and every penny and nitnoid. I've been trying to let go of that and just be better about it overall. But it was always just a stress factor for us, and still probably will be for me for a while.
And just to like put into context of how much he's grown, because he's always going to give the like, oh yeah, it was hard, kind of thing. But like, so he used to have like pie charts of what our expenses were and what we could spend, and like what, like at one point he told me I had like $10 to get my hair done. I was like, this pie chart, we need to redo this because this is not the right proportion. So even if we have to go without breakfast, we have to have a hair budget. So in all seriousness, he was really like completely for our first 5 children, like always on it. Like, you have this much to spend, you can't go to the grocery store today, like those kind of things. And he ended up taking a huge risk, and we prayed about it and we felt like it was the Lord, but he went with a friend who was doing a startup. And so we left his job and all of his great,
just steady paycheck,
benefits, all the things,
stuff you'd want to have.
To do this startup. And we felt like the Lord was calling us to do this, but it ended up we lost everything. Like, not even just our expenses, but like money we put into it and and like all of our investments, everything, like just everything. And really like reeling from that, like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And like, it was a slow process too, to come back. Like, it wasn't like all of a sudden someone sent us $1 million and we were good to go. Like, it was definitely a process of learning to trust. But since then, and that's probably been 16, 17 years since then, the Lord has just radically changed his approach to our finances. It's like, it's like a realizing like there was no way that we were going to budget to make ends meet that month, but every month we made ends meet. And so it became this process of trust that even though it's still a stressor for him, that's not being projected to every area of our lives anymore. And it wasn't a stretching, I think.
Yeah, we try not to, but there are times. But yeah, we were to the point where I literally was about to go on an interview to move out of state. And like then had an interview the next day in town and end up getting a job here. Otherwise, we'd have had to move just to have. And I was even looking about getting back in the military. Like we were to that point where it just was not working in town. So it was a struggle. But yeah, I mean, you try to. Like it's
praying hard during that.
We were, and there's a flip side of that. I do. I think part of it is I want the kids to understand and be responsible and understand finances and how much it does take. Right. I think we do. We've been very unfortunately and fortunate. We live in an area where what they see is not representative of how I grew up and Carrie grew up. So, they do and appreciate hard work and things just don't magically appear. And so there is a balance there, right? They have to experience a little bit of that. Understand it and realize that it does take some work. You have to be, you have to earn it and work for it. So there's some of that balancing as well in society currently. So yeah, for sure.
There's two domains I would love to get into before we wrap up. I just want to make sure we're all good with time and everything. So Bob, I don't know if you have any other domains you're hoping to get into, but the two I want to get into are kind of generic. Well, let me just say them. When you guys were thinking about coming on, I'm sure you thought and prayed about it. And so I want to give you the space to be able to share maybe things that were on your heart that haven't come up naturally in the course of conversation that maybe were there. And then I'll get to the second one in a second. So wide open. Like, is there anything that was on your heart even then or now about parenting that you'd like to share?
I mean, for me personally, I think, as Dad mentioned, just this place in my heart, like really our hearts about like this book, Beloved Daughter, that we came out with, and really like this desire to root and ground our children in truth, because we know that we live in a world that, even if they're insulated in their early ages, or even if you do all the right Catholic things, that they're still going to be hit with the arrows of the enemy. And that you can't protect them from that. Even in the insulation, like you can't protect them from that. Like these things come in and they will go into the world. You want your children to go out into the world. Like you want them to become who they're called to be and to live into their vocations and to be strong adults. But I think so often we take for granted these beautiful years of foundation building, and how these first few years of life are so important in understanding the truth of who we are, especially in a world that's so confusing, where there's so many different mixed messages, and watching what it's like as our college students are going out into college and the confusion that's out there, even in Christian colleges, like it's so disturbing. And so one of the things like that is really heavy on both of our hearts is being able to speak that truth into our children's hearts, like to be able to speak it as a foundational piece of who they are. Like, and yes, like words like I love you or, I'm proud of you are important, but like scriptural truths, like you're good, you're made for goodness, you're made for love, you're part of the Holy Trinity. And so sometimes as parents, I know having the words being in healing ministry, the book that we wrote, Beloved Daughter, that is more of a way for parents to be able to instill that truth into children, like to be able to speak that over them, to be able to allow them to hear that before all of the lies of the enemy take root in their heart, that be the first thing that they hear, the first thing that they listen to. And so whether you have the book in your hands or you just have the words in your heart, just not to be afraid to speak it to and over your children, because you are as parents, like you're the first school of love, and you're also like at that stage such a beautiful, intricate part of all of their formation for the rest of their lives. And if they know that truth and they can begin to live that out, like they'll be able to withstand a lot more.
Duane, anything you want to add or anything else there?
Yeah, I think the struggle always when I hear the topic is I don't want folks to think that we have it all together. I'm not an expert on parenting at all. I mean, every day
Sure.
is a new lesson for us. It's like that you get up and you erase the whiteboard and start from scratch the next day. And I mean, I think the biggest thing is just you got to get up and be present and get involved every day and just and try. I mean, I think I go to bed like, did I do the best I could that day? Like I really, if I did, then it may not have been perfect or the result, but you have to be involved. And really, I think with the kids is they just want to see you present with them. I mean, I think we always hear the story about, this cool stuff and they end up playing with the box, right? That's really what they don't need all the cool stuff. They just want you to be with them. So that's the biggest lesson I have learned is just to try to be present. I know everybody can't be. There's a lot of situations out there, but not perfect by any stretch. Just get up and try to make it and try it with the support everybody that you have around you is to do the best you can, and then go from there. And then that's really so. I always get concerned like I'm not an expert on pretty much anything at this point. It's not parenting. It's not perfect. We do try and we do our best and been blessed from that standpoint. So
yeah. We appreciate your humility, and as an outsider, we can say, yeah, you figured some things out. That's definitely the case. And yeah, you're obviously still figuring it out.
Every day.
Yeah, amen to that.
Sure.
So there's a whole list, listeners, that I'm going to give you at the very end of the episode of just things I've heard implicit or explicit in our conversation. But I want, if I was sitting out there, I would probably want to ask a question about something. And so what I've done here as we've been going along is I've created a list of what we'll call the sprint round. And so I'm going to throw a topic at you and you just have to give me your first initial quick reaction. And so listeners, here beware. This they don't know what's coming. They have no time really to think about it. So they're not going to give a robust answer about every little detail and nuance, but it's just, at least you get something to work on and go with. So I don't even know how many that are here. So just, if you're like, you're going to feel, I imagine, like, dang it, I wish I would have said blank, but that's the nature of this game. So, all right. So
speed round.
Yeah, speed round. Right. Number one, initial reactions, whatever you want to say. School.
School? Which type of school? I mean, that's.
Did you homeschool? Did you send them to school?
Yeah, we homeschool. We made a decision early on to homeschool to high school, and carried it in the community we have here with our She group and some of the other families that have been involved in Tallahassee have been a huge influence for us. But I do think it's been good for the kids to get out. We do high school at a local private school for them to have a transition period from homeschool into the kind of the real world environment. So it's been good for them, I think.
Yeah. And like Duane said, I mean, we have a good Catholic school here, but not multitude of choices. And so for us and where we are in our location, our wonderful homeschooling community, it's been the right choice for us. Mm-hmm. And I would say my older kids have echoed that. So I've been grateful for that, like that they were grateful that they were homeschooled and grateful that they went to high school. So.
Yep.
Nice. Prayer as a family.
Probably not enough lately. Carrie does it probably really well with the younger kids as part of the homeschool and the co-op activity. The older kids with them being with that activities and events. We do the rosary a lot of times, especially when we're traveling as a family.
Or even in the car, like going to church or on the way. If like we have a captive audience, we're like, we're praying the rosary.
So it's normal. It's a normal integrated, like,
we try. Definitely, I guess it can be improved upon. I think that's something with the older kids probably to reinstitute. But the rosary's been great. We do listen to it, and we also pray as a family, and each kid will grab a decade. But one thing about a lot of kids, everybody can split it up that way. So it's nice. They take the pressure off of them to do the whole thing. So for sure.
Sweet. Devices, phones, iPads.
As little as possible. So I think, I don't know if Bob shared, but before I became a parent, I had two things: books and blocks were my recommendations, and we've kind of lived that mantra since then. So we do a lot of Lego builds, a lot of books. We've been blessed to have a little reading nook we put in for the kids as far as a remodel, where you store all of our books. We have bookcases on their beds to look at books. Devices we don't get phones to high school, so there's nothing We don't allow social media accounts. We don't have social ourselves. Laptops and devices are used in the common areas of the house, not in anything where they can go into it. So I think it's been pretty good. I think it has a lot of stress levels for the kids nowadays. Unfortunately, with high school, they almost have to have devices because one, they issue laptops, everything's electronic submissions, syllabuses, and schoolwork is done on apps, so they're almost required to have it. But phones go back on the countertops
at night. Like no one can take their phone to their room. They can't sleep in their room with the phone. Like it is hard though, Jake, as we have adult children coming home, it's a little harder to manage all of that. I don't know if you've experienced that too, but
yes. Yeah. I love, yeah. I mean, it's anyway, this is the issue with speed round. It's like, these could all be topics, but okay. This is going to be a broad, it's kind of, I'll say it more generically. Church on Sunday, a must, optional. When do they get to choose? Like, what's that deal? Church on Sunday?
I don't know. I hate to say must. I mean, I don't want them to feel that way, but I think it's ingrained that it's what we do. We go to mass, whether it's Saturday or Sunday. There's been many a weekend, the soccer tournament, we'll show up in absolutely the most reeked uniform smelling possible, but we make mass.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, the majority of priests say, I'm glad you're here. I don't care what it looks like. And that's what they're excited we're there. We'll show up with 3 or 4 kids, completely covered in sweat and salt, nasty uniforms, so they've been slide tackles, everything else, but we're there and we'll figure it out. So,
and even that, well, sometimes we have to divide and conquer, but most of the time, I mean, this is a huge credit to my dad. We do brunch afterwards as a family, like as a big, large family.
Yeah.
So we all go to mass, and even my college kids will be like, they're going to mass where they are. My daughter, our oldest, who is on a Fulbright fellowship in Korea, didn't know anything about Korea, didn't know how to get anywhere the first night she was there, but it was a Sunday. And she walked in the winter, 30 minutes to get to mass. And I just thought, I was like, I was so grateful that was her priority in this country where she didn't know anyone. I also was terrified. Like, why would you do that? At the same time. But,
that's so good.
But I feel like we've never had to have that discussion with why are we going to mass?
And I think that's probably a model too, right? There's not a division between Carrie and I as far as mass is what it is.
Yeah.
It may change the time, but we're there typically unless someone's sick, and then we'll divide and conquer or something like that. But typically we're taking up an entire pew at a Good Shepherd typically is what happens. So yeah, and it's and so the older boys have altar served, which was great for them for formation. So they've seen that. We had a great mass a couple weeks ago at Bob's house as a family, which is fantastic. So yeah, it's just I can't count the number of times we've missed mass probably on more than one hand probably in the last.
Yeah. Okay. So this is going to be hard to keep it short. The sex talk.
Yeah, we've typically kind of divided. I mean, Carrie's done the girls and I've done the boys. We had a series that we did with the boys, it's a combination of talks and activities for the guys typically to get them out. We also have done some readings with them in general. But I think they're a lot of times probably exposed to just where we're at just by a large family and from that standpoint, and a lot of friends. So
you've heard our dinner conversations. They're not very censored. So I feel like our younger kids are getting a lot by
osmosis anyway. Yeah.
It's osmosis. Yeah.
Okay.
And
so
biology.
Yeah. If I could add though, in the beginning, you would take the kids off by themselves for.
Yeah. He did that great with
the
boys.
passport period and stuff. Yeah. And we try to make sure we're having that conversation before they're hearing it with friends in schools and stuff like that too. But yeah. And Jake, you missed some of the great conversations with Kathy and Margie back in the day. There's some very interesting nurse discussions that used to happen at the dinner table quite a bit from delivery at TMH. So yeah, you'd have to take part of those. So
just casual, while you're having, your
100%, right? Yeah. No second thoughts.
No big deal. So here's another one. I know the answer, but this will be just interesting. Do you look down on other families who have 2, 3 kids?
Absolutely not. I mean, absolutely. God is so good in his individual way in which he's created not just people, but families, and just the beauty of each family life. I think that there's, I've noticed that some of my closest friends are actually smaller moms of smaller families. And I think it's because they have the capacity to be able to enter into relationship. They have this beautiful way of almost like a spiritual sisterhood. And that some of my larger family mom friends aren't able to do. Atlanta Nicole, who I know you guys
They're
will have
coming
on,
on. Yeah.
are very, very dear friends to us, and their spiritual parenthood has blessed us as brothers and sisters in so many ways because of their capacity. And I'll let you answer that too.
Yeah, I don't think I don't look down on them because you don't know, everybody's situation is different. You don't know what it might be. There may be some other things that contributed to it. We know several friends who had trouble conceiving and have big gaps where they have one kid, even though they wanted more, they just couldn't do it. So there's none of that. I think sometimes there is. I think the biggest concern I have is when I look at it with that many is, am I able to spend enough time with all the kids individually? That's my biggest fear most times because I really want to nurture that. So there is a struggle there. And obviously sometimes you look at like, man, it'd be nice just to go out of town this weekend and relax, and Carrie and I could hang out by the pool and, and chill. That's probably not going to happen. I think so. It's not necessarily, I feel I'm judging on them. I would like more, sometimes there's more time with Carrie would be great for our relationship, but no, I mean, everybody's situation is different. Hopefully we can bring joy to them seeing us. I think we hopefully are a positive influence on what people see at having a large family. Because I know, unfortunately for Carrie's had to deal with comments and situations where people aren't gracious with her, which is a shame. So I think it disheartens a lot of families. Like, we don't want to be a burden on it, and it's hard, but I don't judge anybody for what they've done. But yeah, it'd just be nice to have sometimes spend more time with Carrie. Be phenomenal.
Sometimes what he's saying, Jake, is sometimes he's jealous.
Here we go, another 30 minutes on the clock.
It does take a lot to take care. I call this place the farm. It's like something's always broken that I got to fix. So it would be nice if I wasn't fixing something every day of the week. But no, but generally, like having the boys home, we've over the summer just seen the transition, different windows with them has been great. The older kids entering them, so we do get the full experience. I would say with the youngest one, I think we've had a little bit more time to enjoy that window he's in, where I think before we're kind of rushed with so many kids. So really enjoying Nate and where he's at, and just the silliness he provides for our family and the joy he brings has been great. So
that's so good.
Sure.
I want to, so listeners, if you're hearing this and you're in your community, of somebody who has a big family that's in your community. So Heather and I have 3 kids. And one of the things that we learned, we're very close friends with a family that has 10. And as we became friends with them, something they said just in casual conversation was, what's weird is we've never been to anybody else's house for dinner. And so Heather and I said, well, that's going to change. And so what we did is we invited the giant family over to our house for dinner. And initially you go, oh, dear God, what did we do? Right? It's like, and to Heather, this is where Heather's gifts shine, and we did it. And so I'm thinking, oh, this is great. And they're all going to leave, and I'm going to have to go Cinderella on the house. But what happened, which I've seen it happen in your guys' crew too, is, okay, time to do the dishes. And then 8 people stood up, and I was like, what is going on? And the dishes were done in half the time. And so families out there, if there's a family that you see in your parish and you're like, man, they seem cool, but invite them over to your house for dinner. It's a beautiful experience. So that's my challenge. Okay. Moving on. Letting your kids sleep at other people's houses.
Yeah, that is very few. So we let them do that with cousins. There's a few like really close, like godchildren, like that kind of thing that we've allowed them to do that with. But generally, no. That's been kind of
it has to be a family that we are very, very familiar with, and they align with how we operate. And we'll usually, if it's not, communicate to them how we do things with the phones and how to behave and how to interact and all that stuff. I think the one good thing has been with the number of siblings, they usually haven't asked that a whole bunch. And then usually, to your point, Jake, they come here.
Yep. We have a lot of people coming.
We have folks that hang out with us at the house. They don't have to go places. And then the flip side is to be a lot of times which has been great with the sports and activities, our kids generally don't go out late that much or ask for it. They're usually pretty tired. We keep them running pretty often and frequent. So there's not been a lot of that request. Even if they go out, they typically, even the older kids' curfew is 11:30 or 12. I think we've reinforced and I've seen nothing really good happens after 2:00 in the morning. So I think they've taken that to heart and seen that. So yeah, we really haven't had that many battles on that, to be honest with you. It's not been a lot of requests. So.
That's cool.
Yeah.
do you force your kids to go outside?
I have to force them to come in.
Okay, that's a good. So gives a taste of your. So again, that's my experience of them. They're rolling down the hill. That's what they choose to do. And you guys live in Florida, and I've seen them trying to sled down a hill with no snow. So it's
Yes.
like, yeah, that's okay. So we'll skip that one. Do you do allowances? How do you do?
No.
How do you do no allowances? Okay, cool.
No, but like we're pretty. I mean, I think we're pretty generous. Like if they always help out. So if they ask us for something, and none of them are extravagant. Maybe our one of our daughters would ask for things out of the scope.
Fair enough.
But the rest of them will be like, "Hey, I'm going to go out. Is it okay if I fill up the car with gas?" And they're not making money yet, so yeah, you can do
fair
that.
enough.
Like, or can I have money to go with my friends?
And the rule has always been academics and athletics. If you're doing stuff and you're working towards it, we're okay with covering expenses. But to Carrie's point, they're fairly conscious. They won't ever make a large purchase without us, or don't really ask for a lot. So it's usually like the outside comment. So we'll get a soccer ball, pickleball stuff now. And that's usually kind of what they want to do. There's not a lot of other stuff. But yeah, we don't do any type of this for that type money situation.
Sometimes I will pay for a job. Like, I need a closet cleaned out and I'll buy you some new shoes.
I get you. Okay. Yeah. Which that feels normal. Yeah. I'm doing that with my youngest this summer. I'm going to hire her to organize all my files.
There you go. Yeah.
Anyway, chores.
Mandatory.
Yeah. Everybody does something. Even, obviously not Nate because he's one, but like Will, like every night he knows he has to set the table. And the hardest part about that is figuring out how many are going to be there that night. It's like a math problem.
So he's got them. Okay, good. So it's homeschool. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah. First question: who's coming? So I can add it up. But yeah, no yard work, cleaning the cars, all that stuff. Laundry. As soon as they can do it, they're doing it.
Yeah, I'm not doing everybody's stinky laundry.
We're on time. Yeah.
Okay, two more. Dating.
We asked before Nate. We were doing better, I think. Since Nate's been bored, it's been more a challenge, I think, just to get out.
No, us dating or kids dating?
Yeah,
awesome. Both.
Okay. Yeah, we have not done as well with a nursing baby as we used to do, but we were going out for a couple of years, like at least twice a month.
Sweet.
If not more.
We were doing better.
We were doing better.
Kids dating. Yeah.
Kids dating. We do not let them go on a date until they're 16 or 17.
Well, we really don't encourage dating.
But in general, like if we can avoid it altogether, like they've done like proms and our one son has had a girlfriend since their freshman year in high school, but we didn't let them do anything together for the first 3 years, and they like to remind us of that.
Well, and the beauty of having lots of siblings, typically go out there, and one of the younger siblings was sitting in someone's lap, preventing them from going anywhere anyways. But no, I think with again, some of the stuff that with Bob and the information, just knowing how unhealthy some of those ties can be later on too, right? Yeah. We don't encourage dating. It's not serial dating. Like it really is. Our oldest had a long-term boyfriend, realizing there was probably not any progression, wasn't going to be Catholic. And why are you dating someone like that, right? So it kind of makes sense. Like, why are we engaging and intertwining our lives if there really is? You can be friends, it's great, but there's no really reason to date.
Yeah.
So I think that's been kind of the messaging we've provided since they were little, really.
Yeah, and Jake, you weren't around back then, but when we used to have our week-longs in Tallahassee conferences, we would send our older kids to help
materials,
but they would get all of the great
we'd have them review the workbooks and stuff. So they were getting it. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Okay, I added one. So discipline. Are you a timeout family? Are you we're going to sit you down? Are you a sculpting family where you've got to do therapy for an hour? Like, no? Okay. Discipline.
Probably some combination of timeout, work-related stuff, some extra things to do kind of stuff, apologizing. We do make sure they do hash it out and talk about it.
Yeah, my older kids think I did it all wrong. I used to call it the peace chair, and they'd have to sit and figure it out.
Nice.
And they couldn't leave until they came to a place of enthusiastic peace.
Yes.
But it was a little bit like the sculpting thing. I feel like going into adulthood, this is going to be the thing they make fun of me for. So,
Until they have their own kids and they're like, crap, I did the peace chair thing, Mom. I felt like you. And you're like, well, I'll just let that slip by.
Can't stop you from being your parents. That's right. For sure.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, last one. What do you do when you disagree with your spouse in a parenting situation, but they're in it. Like one of you's parenting 100% and you're going, I don't like this. What do you do in that situation? Do you correct them in front of the kids? Do you wait? What's a typical scenario there?
We've done both. And it's not been good for our marriage when we've done it in front of the other.
Okay.
I think Duane is a lot better at that than me. Like, I think he tries to like divert the situation or like, hey, Carrie, let's go do something over here when he knows like maybe I'm pregnant and hormonal and like about to rip into somebody or something.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think, especially if he's like in military mode and it's a boy, like I can be a little bit more protective. Like I know a few times I've been like, no, that moment as a mom and like really usurped his responsibility or his authority. And it really like we've had to hash that out between us a couple of times.
That's good.
Yeah.
Duane, I know it well. My kid's nickname for me at certain times is Drill Sergeant. And so I'm like, man, I'm proud that that's my nickname for you. Like, thank you. I will take that as an honor. So I before I land the plane and say thank you, here's the things that I've heard listeners, and this will be in the show notes and whatnot, but it's just stuff to maybe sit with and think about and maybe ask questions about in your own parenting, because what I'm hearing about what Carrie and Duane have done is these things were part of their formation and they're explicit. They may not have listed them like this, but here we go. Having received intentional parenting, so they're conscientious of how they were parented, the husband sacrificing, having vision and alignment, absolute must to have support in the community. The Catholic faith is essential and mandatory. Sorry, that's my words. You guys didn't say that, but your faith is your centerpiece of your whole life. You have to get involved. You do what it takes. You're open to whatever the more requires. You may never see the fruit, but that doesn't matter. You're open to feedback. You're Holy Spirit led. The messages that your kids are hearing explicitly or implicitly really matter, and you're attentive to those. You're praying for the Holy Spirit to fill your inadequacies. You repair very well or attempt to do it, and you're always trying to root them in the truth. These are the things that I've heard you saying throughout our conversation today that are pillars essentially in your parenting styles, which, man, that's a fantastic list. And so listeners, if you're saying, I want more, this is the cool thing, which isn't very common, is when you have a great conversation, you go, man, I want more. Well, the cool part is that they have more in the form of resources and whatnot. So we're going to put in the show notes all of the resources that you can have access to. So there's varying books on identity of a man. There's the book, Man Your Post. I got to be involved in that one, so I'm grateful for that. And then you have children's books that I just got my copy of the one, Beloved Daughter. It's so cute. I showed it to my girls, and they were like, "Oh," like, and they're young adult women, and they were like, "Oh, that's cute." So it's very cool there. So we'll put a link to all of those resources. And I think what I'm trying to say, listeners, is if you want to see some of these pillars in action or maybe draw out some, that's what these resources are valuable for. So, Bob, is there anything else I'm missing or anything else you'd like to say before we say thank you?
I'd just add, the 4 identities in Undone, and then
in the retreat
and in the book.
Yeah.
And also the Beloved Son is coming out this year,
which is the kid version of the Beloved Daughter one. Yeah. Very cool.
And a lot of these ideas and concepts too that we talk about, I do the Unveiled Marriage Conference too with my dad.
Yes.
And then our women's conference as well. So
and the marriage conference coming up as well.
That's what I said.
Unveiled. I'm sorry. Not there and done.
No, that's awesome. Carrie, Duane, thank you. Thanks for being on here. Thanks for letting us go wherever the heck we went. It's awesome to have witnesses of really wonderful parents, and I'm grateful that you kicked us off here. It's beautiful. Thank you for your yeses that maybe your kids have never said thank you for. Thank you. Thank you. It's awesome.
Thank you, Jake, and thanks, Daddy.
Thank you very much for having us.
You're welcome.
Proud of you both.
Listeners, this is the first part, and so next time we'll be talking to, are we talking to sister and father next? Who are we talking to next, Bob?
I think we'll have Lance and Nicole follow this.
Lance and Nicole will come next. And so next episode's on spiritual parenting. So it's a rich topic that we're all called to. And so I'm looking forward to that. So listeners, God bless. We'll look forward to talking to you again soon.